Does anybody have a map? Anybody maybe happen to know how the hell to do this? I don't know if you can tell, but this is me just pretending to know. So where's the map? I need a clue. Cause the scary truth is I'm flying blind and I'm making this up as I go. As I go. Welcome back to StillerBros at the movies, ladies and gentlemen.
That song's not in the movie.
No, it isn't. But today, in case you couldn't tell, we are covering Dear Evan Hansen. We've been way too out of touch. I'm determined to sing more in this one than in the actual musical movie than I did in the last one, which was an action movie.
We are... Yes, because apparently this is going to be our musical episode. Anyway, this has been in the works for...
a while. So
not as long as most other things we've been talking about.
But in this particular case, so to tell the story of Dear Evan Hansen, we have to start with Stars in Our Eyes.
Actually, we need to start about...
2011.
Yeah.
2011 is when Ben Pasek and Justin Paul, the songwriters behind La La Land and The Greatest Showman, came in to worked with Stephen Levinson, a writer of such a TV, he and playwright behind such projects as Masters of Sex and other stuff off the top of that I can't remember off the top of my head.
And then they put together a story about a boy who is he has some very big issues. So
this one's gonna have a trigger warning right off the bat. We're gonna mention this movie we're talking about talks about suicide and suicidal thoughts and actions,
as well as mental health issues.
So if any of that leaves you feeling even the slightest bit triggered, we recommend that you only see this movie at your own discretion.
Yeah.
In fact, just because I want to be incredibly careful for how we step around this, we're going to try not. If this is our least jokey episode, then you're going to understand that in the context, this movie is not built around is built on a premise that is very dark and is very dark and very real. So just to be safe, I'm going to put some suicide prevention Hansen resources right in the description of this video, just to make 100% sure that we are 100% clear on where we stand on this issue. We just would like it if it didn't seem like we were trying to make light of this very serious topic.
We know suicide is a difficult thing. We've lost a classmate last year to suicide. It is a very real situation, and it can affect so many people, not just the person who's doing it. So now that lecture hour's out of the way, let's get back to the movie.
So Dear Evan Hansen is a musical that quickly blew up, mostly because of the fact that it kind of built its advertising and everything on the idea of people with problems such as in this case social anxiety being found. The biggest song in the entire show is called "You Will Be Found." It's it's probably a big reason why the show got such rave reviews, became so popular, ended up winning the Tony for Best Musical.
And part of it is also that Ben Platt was just freaking insanely good in this role.
Yeah, Ben Platt playing Evan Hansen obviously was a big factor, especially since the fact is the guy can sing like nobody's business. Seriously, the best acting role of Ben Platt's career is probably in Pitch Perfect, just for the audition scene where he pretends that Skylar Astin is a better singer than him. Anyway, Ben Pasek and Justin Paul basically built the musical's popularity also on the fact that they had been able to be the lyricists for La La Land, which got so many Oscar nominations, so much awards recognition.
And then because of La La Land and Dear Evan Hansen, The Greatest Showman got so much more attention because of Ben and Pasek and Justin Paul.
And so Pasek and Paul have just basically been somewhat in-demand songwriters. They wrote the lyrics for the Aladdin remake 2 years ago. They wrote a song for the first Trolls movie. They are currently in the process of writing the music for the Snow White remake that is coming down the pipeline, and I'm sure that's only scraping the surface of what they did. They even wrote a song in one of the Flash Supergirl musical episodes.
Yeah, so they're in demand, and another person who's been in demand since Dear Evan Hansen has been, obviously, the star, Ben Platt.
Now, obviously, Ben Platt is kind of a character. He's kind of an actor who probably showed up on a lot of people's radar with the first two Pitch Perfect movies. He just disappeared from the second and third one, probably just because he was on Broadway. He was still on Broadway, or at least that's one of the things. I don't know. The scheduling is weird. The scheduling is not something I know off the top of my head. I'm not like obsessively following Ben Platt, digging through Ben Platt's old tweets and shit to find out what he was doing when they were supposedly shooting Pitch Perfect 3.
Yeah, but he has done some stuff. But he has done some stuff since leaving Dear Evan Hansen, such as The Politician on Netflix, and he's done a couple. And he's currently shooting a movie with Richard Linklater that we won't see for about 20 more years.
Merrily we roll along with his best friend Beanie Feldstein.
Yes, but now, after this, we have the film adaptation of Dear Evan Hansen, which has been pushed into development way faster than any other Broadway musical probably ever has in recent memory.
Mostly because the filmmakers seemed to be very committed to having Ben Platt reprise his role. Now, I don't want to go too deep into it. There's obviously a lot of people who are making points that seem to have merit. There are other people who are just assuming things. But the thing is, Ben Platt as Evan Hansen was kind of a selling point for the musical because he was probably the biggest name attached to the musical at the time,
Yeah.
just because of the Pitch Perfect movies. So bringing him in to play Evan Hansen again makes sense in certain ways.
However, there is one problem with casting Ben Platt, and that is that Ben Platt, at the time of this recording, is 27 years old.
Now, a lot of people have kind of taken it to a certain extreme. Now, Ben Platt has kind of we assumed when they announced there was a Dear Evan Hansen movie on the way that they were kind of going to recast the part, mostly because Ben Platt's first big Hollywood role that we ever saw him in, he played a college student. He was playing a college student. We didn't know. We thought, well, he's old enough to play a high schooler on Broadway, but way too old to play a high schooler in a movie. But apparently they were like, nope, we're determined to put we're determined to make this version of this movie with him in the role.
Now, and then the first trailer came out, and people were like, it's a little weird. It does come off a little weird that a guy who looks almost 30 and then looks like he's 30 is playing a high school student.
Personally, I'm not really all that bothered by it. I think I'm desensitized from all the other high school movies that have cast 20-somethings to play their high schoolers.
Yeah, I mean, if Mae Whitman can get away with it in The Duff, I think we can excuse it here in especially since it was basically the entire cast of Grease.
Yeah, and plus Ben Platt's the same age as the guy who's playing his best friend in the movie.
Yeah, so it's not. It probably isn't that as big a deal. Maybe we'll get used to it as the movie goes on. It'll probably just be an initial shock at the beginning of the movie, and then slowly get used to it.
Either way, it's led to a lot of jokes and criticisms and everything like that. One of the biggest jokes being that someone seems to think that a joke article about them de-aging him and putting that out in limited release is real, when it's like, come on, dude, they basically they doctored a toddler's head onto his body.
Yeah. Although, god damn it, why did Kevin Spacey have to dress like Evan Hansen when he hosted the Tonys that year?
Because Evan Hansen was nominated.
I'm aware of why he did it. Now it's a photo making its way around. And I was like, wow, Ben Platt looks great as Evan Hansen.
Okay, so let's go back to the rest of the cast. We're giving Ben Platt a lot of attention for this.
Yes.
So cast opposite Ben Platt is the likes of Amy Adams and Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore, who has never sang professionally her entire career.
We'll see if that feels the same. If it feels like it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Amy Adams, they cut the 2 songs that she sings.
They cut all but one of the songs that she sings in the show.
So it's kind of like, so you're just not gonna let Princess Giselle sing? Come on, guys.
We also have Caitlin Dever, Dever or whatever.
Dever. Anyway, she's in this as the love interest Zoe Murphy, who is also got a bit of an issue. Where we've also got a bit of an issue kind of there. Also, Ben Platt is not the only person from the Broadway production to come back.
Colton Ryan, who was his standby.
Who was the standby for Mike Faist, the original actor who played Connor in the musical.
He was actually standby for all 3 of the guys, so he knows the show up backwards and forwards.
Either way, he is playing Connor in this. Though Connor's role has been significantly reduced from the musical, where he would show up, where to my knowledge he would occasionally show up as a ghost, just be like, "Hey, they paid me for the whole show, so I got to show up every once in a while."
Yeah, but we'll see. But again, we'll see. There's also a new 3rd act, but the director of this, I think we should talk about quickly, is Stephen Chbosky, who is most known right now as in the film making circle anyway, as the director of the adaptation of his novel The Perks of Being a Wallflower and the adaptation of the book Wonder.
Now, Stephen Chbosky, when he was announced as the director, I'm like, that is perfect. That's just perfect. He's angsty high school stuff. That's amazing. The only problem is that he's never directed a musical before, so it just kind of raises the question of what are they going to do with this. Now, the way that the trailers make it seem is that it looks like it's very much a John Greenish kind of thing, where not to knock John Green, and I'm not even minimizing the fact that John Green's that this isn't even really it's not even really John Green's fault. It's really the style of the kind of young adult literature that made a big, huge rise in fame over the last few years. But it kind of looks like that. Now, to my knowledge, the Dear Evan Hansen musical actually has a bit more of a lighthearted tone here and there. Like it's not entirely built on the back of we have to be sad all the time. Like literally 2 of the songs are very, very lighthearted, with kind of a with at least the second one having a bit of a slow turn to the more dramatic parts. The other one being just almost entirely basically a kind of cute little comedy song, which that's the one they left in.
Yeah,
which I kind of hope that it only looks weird, that it only looks that way in the trailers, and that it doesn't just suddenly build into and it doesn't just suddenly be like, hey, sincerely me, dun, 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 woo, then back to sad.
We'll find out, but we probably shouldn't we're speculating a lot more on this than we usually do.
Yeah, we're rambling, but it's a bad habit, I know.
Okay, so on that note, we'll see you guys after the jump.
So this movie's taken a lot of hates, and I can honestly say I don't know if it's deserved.
In some ways, I got exactly what I was expecting. In other ways, I'm a little disappointed.
It's fine. In the long run, it's fine. It's a decent...
We're not going to call it harmless because, let's face it, the subject matter is very serious, and
when you're playing with a loaded gun like this, odds are you're not going to please everybody. And I think this kind of plays into... It's playing safe while also kind of throwing around certain it's kind of simplifying the issue in a few different ways.
It's very difficult to talk about, and we ourselves are not experts in it, so we're not going to act like we know what we're talking about.
We're not going to act like we're somehow qualified to talk about the psychological ramifications of this movie, the musical it's based on. All we're going to do is give our opinions based on it, and I think for the most part it's not as terrible as the critics and just the general online hate fervor have made it out to be.
It's okay. I enjoyed it for what it was, and again, there were parts of it that just I didn't like. But we can get deeper into that right now.
I really, as miscast as some people may think Ben Platt is, I think he nailed it a lot of the times with the way that he played Evan Hansen as just this socially awkward guy who, if I'm being entirely honest, I see way too much of myself in to actually go over the line into hating him.
There is a bit of there's a few moments in the movie where you see him in certain ways moving, at least trying to imitate the way a teenager would move in a certain situation, and it's like, how do you do fellow kids moment, but he, for the most part, sells it for what he can, for any ways he can physically sell it.
Caitlin Dever does pretty good with the character Zoe. I'm still fucking pissed that in Requiem she never picks up the damn guitar.
But she does well. They also changed the relationship between her and Evan so that there's actually, it doesn't just come out of nowhere at the end of You Will Be Found. We actually get some build up to it.
Yeah, it's, if I can tell her ends differently because optics, and it's just, I just kind of like the fact that there's this whole, that, and their relationship is pretty decent. Their chemistry is fine. I'm not thinking, I kind of believe that these two actually had some kind of relationship building up. All the songs work, even the new ones, like the anonymous ones, but this is just personal preference, and I don't know if you agree with me, and this is no dig on Amanda Steinberg because she did well, but the character of Alana, I'm just gonna come right out and say it, I fucking hate this character so goddamn much. The character is,
even in the show, she's just kind of really annoying, but here, I hate her so much more than I did in the show, just because of what she does at the end of the second act of the movie. She does something that just drove me nuts, that I can't fucking believe anybody would think, that I can't fucking believe anybody would do this. It just completely commits character assassination on her, and she didn't have much of a great character to start.
The thing about the character of Alana Beck is that I think they were trying, that when they were creating her, they tried to make her somewhat sympathetic, like, oh, she's the head of all these clubs, she's kind of a type A, but the thing is, they kind of wrote her as the exact kind of person they were kind of trying to tell this story about, the kinds of people who see a tragedy, whether it be something incredibly local or something incredible or something far away like a celebrity's sudden death, and making it about them. That was very much what the show was creating. That's what the story behind the show was. And Alana Beck seemed like the avatar, like an avatar of that kind of thing, a direct avatar of that kind of thing, where it's like she literally walks into.
She pushes herself into this situation
and is like, well, Connor and I weren't that close, but we were partners in a project one time.
She changes her story constantly to make them closer and closer, so they're basically almost.
He was the closest acquaintance, and I don't want to and I don't want to make it seem like these guys were deliberately destroying the only black female character that they had in their show. But it's just kind of weird.
It is so. It just infuriated me when I saw a bootleg of the show online, and it infuriates me even more in the movie because they make it even more. Because they take what she does near the end of the show, and they make it more premeditated. They make it seem like she thought this through more. It makes me hate her even more, the character even more, because what she does in the show is fucking disgusting and awful but she is so much worse in the movie because she just is like, because you see her promise something, then the time goes on and she's just does it anyway.
The character Jared got really, really, really cut to the bone.
But yeah, the character was made gay in this version, and he was also, and his ethnicity was changed.
Not really a big deal for us. We're
just bringing up those two things about the show, mostly because, and his ethnicity changing is not a big deal, mostly because in the show he was just kind of, he could be could be inserted with anybody. Again, the actor who plays Connor was a standby for this character,
which is kind of a thing with Broadway in general anyway. So why not?
But again, the character was cut to the bone. He lost a lot of moments from his were just gone. Some of them were
like I feel like they're like, with the way that the movie ends, I feel like there's a deleted blow-up scene between him and Evan.
There was a blow-up scene in the show, but
there wasn't in the show. There wasn't the novelization, but I think they cut it from the movie. Which this movie is a little over 2 hours long. It makes sense to cut stuff. It's just kind of weird that they still left the resolution for his part in.
Yeah, and it's also a complaint I have with the show is that Alana and Jared just kind of disappear from the rest of the show.
After a certain point,
they just disappear from the story, and we don't hear from them again.
And then there's Stephen Levenson's script, which is good in places, but then there's things where things are kind of awkward.
Julianne Moore does well.
I did detect a little bit of auto-tune in her singing here and there, but that's about it. Parents also got cut a lot.
Yeah.
From what I can tell.
Yeah, but one thing about Julianne Moore is that they cut 2 of the songs that the character sings. So when she sings at the end of the movie, it's kind of comes weird, feels very like an out of nowhere musical number. And it kind of when it comes down to it, I think I kind of compare this to The Greatest Showman in a way. It's not as bad as its most fervent haters are declaring it, but it's also not as good as its most rabid supporters are saying. It's solid. It's solid, but at the same time, it feels kind of hollow. It's trying to say something, but it just isn't hitting the mark the way it wants to.
It's fine. I didn't hate it. I'm fine with it. I hope I'm not going to be, this isn't going to be one of those ones where I'm like, wait, no. That's, I'm spending all day tomorrow walking around thinking, wait, no, that was awful. I'm just like, it's smooth. Once again, the detractors, I think, are just focusing in certain areas that they probably are probably focusing in certain areas that probably aren't meant to be focused on.
And they do have a reason to focus on those areas, because this is a kind of, the story is very, it's kind of hard to describe. It's not a great, some of the morals are very some morals are ham-fisted, other parts of it are kind of problematic if you think about them a little too much.
Once again, I didn't hate this movie. This isn't like ruining the music. It's not going to ruin the soundtrack for me. I'm probably still going to be spending the next couple of weeks with the songs stuck in my head.
I really like this. I do like this movie a good deal, but really, it's nothing to write home about in the end. It's a very average movie, and
it's fine.
It's fine. I really have nothing more to say about it. If it feels like something you would be into, then you can go see it. But if you're not into it,
if you pretty much determined that you were going to see this, if you like the musical in any form, if you like the songs and the characters in any way that you have already absorbed it, then you're probably gonna like the movie. Then you're probably gonna like the movie just fine. From what we we've gathered online most of the time, it's basically been the kind of movie that you either really like or really hates. We're somewhere in the middle where it's just like, I see how it's fine, it's okay. I don't think Steven Chbosky's gonna completely destroyed like the idea of making him his musical, because it's just like because he made a musical and he seemed to have certain ideas about it, like hey, he got cutting on the beat right, which is something that a lot of directors who never direct musicals kind of get wrong. R.I.P. to Joel Schumacher.
Yeah, but in the end, it is what it is. It exists, and there's not much more to say about it.
It exists. It's fine. I didn't hate it. I'm not gonna be one of the people. I'm not gonna grab a pitchfork and torch and start decrying it. I don't.
But we're not gonna.
I don't blame the actors. I don't blame the director. I don't blame the writer. I don't blame the songwriters. I think they all did a fine job.
They did what they were set out to do. It just maybe didn't work out the way they would have hoped.
I'm just hopeful that anyone who goes to this movie listens to this music, does whatever they can with this story,
if they just
gets whatever they wanted out of it, gets what they wanted out of it. If you're struggling and this is what got you through it, then I'm glad. I'm happy that you found an outlet to feel like you that made you feel like you're worth it, like your life, it matters.
Because there are a lot of people who don't feel that way, and we're not going to be the ones to tell you that the way you interpret art is wrong.
So on that note, I think it's time for us to just say so long. Dear Evan Hansen is fine. Go see it at your own discretion. See it if you want. Don't see it if you don't want. If you were already determined to hate it, then just please leave it alone. Don't be toxic on the internet. Don't just be another toxic person on the internet. Just let it go. Just let this be as it is. I hope that it's not as terrible. I hope that in the end it doesn't end up as terrible as you think it is.
Yeah. So,
and anyway, guys, be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel. This feels really stupid after we just had that long talk. And don't forget to tune in next time when we're going to let you eat everybody!
Bye.